amongst the jurors, we are still unable to reach a unanimous decision.
The wait is now over for YNW Melly, who have been sitting in that cell for 6 fucking years waiting for a verdict that seemed to never arrive. Rumor has it that they were purposely delaying so they could execute him since Florida changed the regulations.
That's why they waited so long to take him to trial. They was waiting for that law to pass.
The verdict was just delivered, and I can assure you that no one anticipated this. We're dissecting everything in this video, including the legal proceedings they underwent, the courtroom drama, and Melly's reaction to the ruling. Let's begin. The streets had been anticipating this decision, but it never materialized. The case that YNW faces. Although Melly seemed resilient, the wheels of justice moved slowly. Melly's legal team pushed for his release on bond throughout the protracted pre-trial processes. Citing the seriousness of the allegations and the possible risk of escape, the prosecution strongly objected. Melly remained in jail, his future in jeopardy, after the judge sided with the prosecution. Why is the case so complicated? And why is it taking so long? The trial was delayed in part due to the careful collection of evidence. COVID-19 made things even more convoluted, which led to numerous delays and disturbances in the nation's judicial institutions. Incarceration without trial has become a point of contention and a topic of heated discussion, YNW Melly's added. While some argued that his detention was warranted due to the gravity of the allegations, others organized in support of his release. There are many parallels between the legal concerns and the case of Tamare Trayvon McIntyre, also known as TK, whose own legal issues served as a warning about the potential and dangers of being a young artist. I'm still not sure how it matters, but let me briefly explain what happened to TK. In July of 2016, TK was taken into custody and accused of capital murder for his role in the home invasion. He was placed under house arrest pending trial due to his advanced age. But TK wasn't planning on remaining confined. TK disconnected his ankle monitor and ran away on March 27, 2017. TK used social media and his songs as his escape escalated into a worldwide manhunt. While TK was a fugitive, he avoided law enforcement and carried on with his illegal activities by traveling across multiple states. TK committed another murder while evading capture. In San Antonio, Texas, on April 23, 2017, TK is accused of the robbery and shooting of Mark Anthony Salazar, age 23. According to witnesses, Salazar and Tar and his friends had been fighting over a narcotics deal before being shot and murdered. A murder charge was added to TK's already lengthy criminal history as a result of this incident. Tar wrote the song "The Race" while he was a fugitive, which described his life on the run and his disobedience of the law. The video of TK posing next to his own wants. With millions of views, The Race became a representation of his radical way of life and catapulted TK into the public eye. However, the success of the song also brought attention to the terrible truth of his crimes and the victims they left behind. When TK was apprehended by US Marshals in Elizabeth, New Jersey on June 30, 2017, his legal evasion came to an end. A turbulent time that had drawn national notice came to an end with his arrest, but his legal struggles remained. Far from finished, TK was convicted in July 2019 of 3 charges of aggravated robbery and murder in connection with the 2016 home invasion. For the murder of Ethan Walker, he received a sentence of 55 years in jail. He also received additional years for the robbery charges. He was charged with capital murder for Mark Salazar's death later in November 2019. If found guilty, TK can be sentenced to death or life in jail without the possibility of release. The prosecution is convinced that they will face another TK predicament if they allow him to go. Many people have questioned the court system's fairness in light of YNW Melly's protracted pre-trial imprisonment, which has generated a lot of public discussion and media attention. When discussing the problems, the rapper's case has been the most frequently brought up. Concerning pre-trial detention, particularly in situations involving prominent offenders and significant allegations, Melly's prolonged incarceration without a trial has had a big impact on her. Legally speaking, It has given his defense team more time to develop a strong case. However, for me, it has meant putting up with the harsh realities of jail and the psychological effects of uncertainty. His career has also suffered as a result of the delay, as it has prevented him from recording tours and taking advantage of other professional chances that would have arisen during this period. There has been a divided reaction from the public to Melly's predicament. His supporters have come together to support him, starting social media campaigns with hashtags like #RFree and petitions demanding his release in a fair trial. They contend that he should be released on bond pending trial, since the legal system is punishing him too soon without a conviction. On the other hand, Melly's detractors highlight how serious the accusations are and how dangerous he might be to the public if he is freed. They emphasize that others' safety must come first and mention the need for justice for the victims and their families. The story surrounding Melly's case has been significantly shaped by the media. The charges have been extensively covered by news organizations and true crime podcasts, which frequently make analogies to other well-known cases like TK's. Because of Melly's fame and the dramatic nature of the accusations, the case has become a recurring theme in online debates and tabloid headlines. The worries that, even if it's a remote possibility, Melly would try to escape or commit more crimes if he's freed on bond. This worry is heightened by the fame and impact that accompany his success as an artist. Reduce these risks and avoid a recurrence of the TK situation, the judge decided to reject bond. Melly's extended incarceration has consequences that go beyond the case. It has spurred conversations about striking a balance between the accused's rights and the need to safeguard the community. Melly's example has been utilized by proponents of criminal justice reform to draw attention to the conditions and more general concerns surrounding bail reform. List institutions for pre-trial detention. The court of public opinion is still split as the judicial proceedings continue to drag on. While others steadfastly maintain that the gravity of the allegations warrants Melly's continued incarceration, his supporters are still demanding his release. The public's ravenous thirst for the most recent turn in this continuing court drama is fueled by the media's constant coverage of every event. The charges against Melly have a significant impact on judicial deliberations. One of the most serious crimes in the criminal justice system is first-degree murder, which carries a life sentence or potentially the death penalty. Judges are more likely to refuse bond in these situations because of the alleged risk of flight and the possible risk to public safety in the event that the defendant is freed. The strength of the prosecution's case is an additional consideration. The court may decide to hold the accused person in jail if the evidence against them seems solid and indicates a high chance of conviction. Is especially relevant if there are worries that, if they are not arrested, the defendant might persuade witnesses to falsify evidence or commit more crimes. The idea of leverage is also a part of the bond denial approach. The prosecution may be able to exert pressure on Melly by keeping her in detention, which could result in a plea agreement or assistance with the inquiry. This strategy is frequently employed in high-stakes situations when the prosecution aims to obtain a conviction without the jury trial's unpredictable nature. There could be a substantial effect on the trial itself. The defendant's capacity to actively engage in their defense may be impacted by pretrial confinement. Being incarcerated restricts Melly's capacity to communicate with his legal team, access resources, and get proof to support his claims. May give the defense a sense of urgency to move the trial along quickly, which may or may not be advantageous to them. Another important factor influencing judicial decisions is public opinion. The court is well aware of the public and media scrutiny it receives in high-profile instances like Melly's. Public outrage and the belief that the justice system is biased can result from granting bond to someone who has been charged with a serious offense. The charges are not being sufficiently taken seriously by the system. On the other hand, refusing bond can be interpreted as a dedication to public safety and justice, even while it runs the danger of being perceived as punitive before a guilty verdict is rendered. However, this is around 1,500 miles east toward California. Bond was granted to Suge Knight on similar accusations. Under the direction of lawyer Thomas Mazzero, Knight's defense team made arguments in favor of their bond request. They highlighted Knight's health problems, such as blood clots and other ailments, which they claimed were not receiving enough attention in prison. They also claimed that because Knight had close ties to the local community and family, he did not constitute a flight risk. The defense also emphasized Knight's financial difficulties, asserting that he was experiencing extreme financial difficulty as a result of his inability to work while detained. They maintained that Knight should be allowed to assist in overseeing his commercial interests and legal matters. The prosecution was adamantly against Knight being released on bond, pointing out his lengthy criminal record, which included accusations of assault, robbery, and other violent incidents. Given Knight's suspected involvement in violent crimes, prosecutors contended that his release would constitute a serious threat to public safety. Additionally, they argued that Knight's release may jeopardize the trial's integrity because of his history of intimidating witnesses and obstructing justice. Knight was portrayed by the prosecution as a compelling argument against his release on bond, since he is a violent and dangerous person. Knight's bond was set at $25 million by the judge after hearing arguments from both parties. The court's evaluation of Knight as a high-risk defendant was reflected in this amount, which was among the largest bonds in California history. Knight's legal team contended that the bond was exorbitant and essentially prevented him from being released. Knight's legal team made an effort to lower the hefty bond sum. The bond was reduced to $10 million during later hearings, which is still a significant amount. In the end, Knight was unable to post bail and was detained during his trial. Returning to Melly's case. Now, whatever you believe to be the why Melly hasn't been released, this lawsuit appears to have no end in sight. While we're out here playing spades, the feds are playing 5D chess. The state used certain digital receipts from Melly's Instagram discussion with Pezzi Gambino to prove her confession during the first trial. On October 26, 2018, Pezzi inquired about Melly's well-being. Melly is said to have replied, "I did that. Shash." However, Stuart Adelstein, Melly's defense lawyer, attempted to cast doubt on this by pointing out that Melly typically spelled that as that in his texts. In response, prosecutor Christine Bradley demonstrated that Melly did, in fact, utilize the standard spelling in a few of his emails, and even in his song, Melly corrected that. They also asserted that prior to the deadly incident, Melly and his team were seen getting into a Jeep on surveillance footage that showed gunfire coming from inside the vehicle. Williams and Thomas had been shot and killed when the police discovered the car a few hours later. According to ballistic analysis, the rounds were fired from inside the vehicle, specifically from Melly's seat. Despite the fact that the gun was never located and that Melly had no gunpowder residue, the evidence suggested an interior shooting as opposed to a drive-by.
And my determination was that this is not a drive-by shooting, and it's based upon this picture here, which is a very good picture to describe it. Shooter's at a stationary position when all but one of these rounds are going in.
Danny Polo, a gang expert, was eventually called by the prosecution to testify regarding Melly's purported ties to the G-Shine Bloods. Polo asserted that Melly was deeply committed, using gang slang in his messages and being aware of all the warning flags.
And does HERC mean?
HERC is a term used by members of G-Shine to refer to each other. It's like calling each other bro or dude, same thing.
Although the precise benefit to the gang was not specified, the state provided images and texts to support their allegations that the killings may have been connected to a gang. The state then mapped Melly and Bortland's phone movements on the night of the killings using phone records. Although he was unable to connect the phones at all times, FBI Special Agent Brendan Collins demonstrated that they pinged close to the murder site. Police detective Miramar, since Melly's phone had its location services disabled. Mark Moretti confirmed that no devices were visible at the crime scene. Nevertheless, security footage Melly's actions, including his pickup by rapper Fredo Bang following the event. Kurt Roders, a BSO DNA specialist, examined objects discovered in the Jeep, including a water bottle and a spent shell casing, but none of them definitively matched Melly's DNA. However, DNA that might have belonged to Melly was discovered on the back passenger side. It was thought that the gunfire came from the door handle. In a daring move, Florida prosecutors intend to use numerous YNW Melly songs as proof in his impending retrial. The Miami Herald reports that on Wednesday, Broward County prosecutor Alexander Buckaloo submitted a court filing outlining a remarkable range of Melly's work that they wish to acknowledge. We are discussing 55 tunes, 18 audio recordings, 4 album covers, and 14 YouTube videos. One of these pieces of proof is Melly's greatest success. I'm Thinking About Murder. Given the situation, this song, which has been a huge hit and is frequently viewed as unsettling, could be crucial to the prosecution's case. The state hopes that these lyrics may Melly's mental health and possible intentions. Although it's not a novel strategy, using rap lyrics as evidence in criminal prosecutions is undoubtedly contentious. Although they can be extremely prejudiced, these lyrics cannot serve as the only foundation for a conviction. Jurors may be influenced by pre-existing prejudices against rappers, which are frequently motivated by race. This can cause individuals to base their decisions more on preconceptions than on concrete facts. Consider the indictment against YSL Rico. Young Thug's songs were utilized by prosecutors to link him to 10 distinct overt activities that advanced the conspiracy. The fine boundary between artistic expression and actual criminal activity is shown by this case. Critics say the strategy unfairly singles out hip-hop artists Young Thug, Gunna, and Last May, more than 24 members of the Young Slime Life. YSL, label, and artists collective were charged with serious gang-related offenses. The 88-page grand jury indictment described 182 crimes, including members donning slime-related apparel or accessories to facilitate the conspiracy, and classified YSL as a violent street gang. Individual charges include aggravated assault with a weapon, attempted robbery, and murder. Prosecutors in Georgia additionally charged all 28 defendants with breaking the racketeer in order to obtain money and property, corrupt and affected. Groups engage in a pattern of unlawful activity. Grammy-nominated artists' controversial rap lyrics, like the famous Juice WRLD record, are being cited as proof. 6 of the 28 accused, including well-known Young Thug, will go on trial. The trial is anticipated to continue for most of the year after starting in Atlanta on November 27th. Rap lyrics have been used as evidence in court before. A Louisiana judge in 2012 permitted a few lines from Boosie's murder trial, Song 187. Although it wasn't officially used as proof, Bobby Shmurda's successful song was closely examined when he was charged with gang-related offenses in 2014. "I was never part of no gang," Shmurda told Vulture. Prosecutors accused the late Draco, the ruler of murder, in 2019 using words from his songs. Even though Boosie and Draco the ruler were found not guilty, 6LX99's songs were mentioned at his gang-related trial that same year. Rap lyrics, according to critics, can unfairly influence juries and disproportionately affect defendants who are black or brown. Veteran lawyer Dina Leopold told Variety that the ruling was obviously racist and created a risky precedent when Maryland's highest court decided in December 2020 that rap lyrics could be used in a murder prosecution. Last year, Jay-Z and other well-known musicians backed Senate Bill S7527, often known as Rap Music on Trial, a New York law that seeks to recognize rap as a form of artistic expression and restrict the use of lyrics in legal proceedings. The proposed law contends that the use of rap lyrics in court violates the idea that a case should be decided on the basis of the facts rather than a person's alleged predisposition to commit a crime, and transforms trials into tools for stifling controversial speech. The bill is presently awaiting a Senate and Assembly vote after passing in committee in late January. The bill's proponent, State Senator Brad Hyman, told Fox 5 NY interview.
No one ever thought that Johnny Cash was going to shoot a man in Reno just to watch him die, or Bob Marley shot a sheriff but spared a deputy. But that's exactly what prosecutors are trying to convince juries about across this country.
Tuesday, October 12, 2021, the legislation that was introduced in November 2020 made a big stride forward by passing the Senate Codes Committee, which was the first step toward a full Senate vote. Jay-Z has also raised awareness of this problem. According to his attorney, Alex Spiro, Jay-Z and all the other artists who have banded together to try to bring about this change find it to be an important issue. This has been a long time coming. Mr. Carter is from New York, and he wants to provide his name and weight if he can. According to Rolling Stone, Jay-Z's attorney, Alex Spiro, a partner at Quinn Emanuel Urquhart and Sullivan, co-wrote the letter with Eric Nielsen, a professor at the University of Richmond who co-wrote Rap on Trial with Andrea, a law professor at the University of Georgia. Dennis Spiro said that he and Jay-Z, who have previously advocated for national improvements through racial diversity and arbitration panels, saw the proposed legislation as a bellwether that may sway other states. Changing the law here benefits the cases it impacts greatly, but it also sends a sign that things are getting better. We anticipate that it will be adopted in many locations, Spiro stated. In 2022, Fat Joe also expressed his support, telling Rolling Stone that, like any other genre, our lyrics are a creative form of self-expression and entertainment. Instead of being used as a weapon to obtain convictions in court, we want our words to be acknowledged as art. I hope the governor and all of New York's politicians will read our letter, defend our artistic liberties, and decide to pass this bill. Prior to his untimely death in 2021, rapper Drow the Aldo Ruler was found not guilty in the 2016 murder of a 24-year-old man. He had personal experience with this practice. Prosecutors used lyrics from Draco's song Flex Freestyle to support their case, and he was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Investigators concurred that he did not pull the trigger, although Caldwell Draco started. I heard about them doing it before, but it was just the way they were doing it, in response to their exploitation of his songs, to claim that he brought armed associates to target another rapper, RJ, who wasn't even present at the party. How they were turning it against me. It was nonsensical. It was simply insane. Instead of permitting artistic expression to serve as the foundation for a criminal theory, Senator Bailey said the new law seeks to stop similar activities in New York by mandating a solid factual connection between the art and the case's circumstances. It is contrary to our fundamental rights to assume a defendant's guilt based just on their musical style or artistic expression, and it reinforces the systemic racism ingrained in the criminal justice system through unfair rap and hip-hop are often associated with criminal activity. When the culture broke down and actual lives were harmed, Bailey said in a statement on Tuesday, a terrifying occurrence that rocked the music business in 2018 would permanently damage the reputation of up-and-coming rapper YNW Melly. It all started when tragedy struck one terrible night. Christopher YNW Juvie Thomas Jr. and Anthony YW Sackchaser Williams, two of Mellier's best pals, were viciously shot and killed. Examining the victims' lives is crucial to understanding the scope of this tragedy. YW Juvie was a young artist with promise, with a wealth of skill and untapped possibilities. Testimonials from friends and family contradicted the first impression of a hardened lifestyle, revealing his sensitive personality, love of music, and desire to break out from the cycle of violence around him. YNW Sackchaser was an ambitious businessman who was well known for his gregarious demeanor and contagious smile. By providing chances, particularly for young, aspiring artists, he sought to improve his neighborhood. All of Juvie and Sackchaser's hopes, dreams, and promising futures were tragically cut short. The consequences of the double, the relatives of the victims were left to deal with unspeakable suffering and grief as a result of the homicide. Parents, siblings, and other loved ones had to deal with a flood of emotions. Utter incredulity, rage, grief, and unresolved questions. The attention and conjecture surrounding the well-known case added to their sorrow. The community where YNW Juvie and YNW Sackchaser lived was profoundly affected by their passing. Both of them were regarded as positive role models who sought to use their gifts to inspire people around them. There was a gap left by their absence that could not be swiftly filled, permanently changing the neighborhood's heartbeat. Immediately after his companions passed away, Melly, who was heartbroken by their loss, said that they had been shot at by bystanders. He maintained that he and his companions were defenseless people who were caught in the crossfire of an arbitrary, violent act. Fans and the media alike were drawn to the story of the purported drive-by shooting as it spread like wildfire. But as the inquiry progressed, the truth started to come to light. The circumstances surrounding the deaths of Thomas and Williams, their conclusions would present a far more dire image. Before long, Melly was the center of attention. According to the authorities, he met them. In an unexpected development, Melly and another buddy, Cortland YW Bortland, Henry was taken into custody in relation to the killings. Authorities thought Henry was Melly's accomplice and that Melly had fired the shot himself. Melly was charged with extremely serious offenses. 2 counts of first-degree murder were brought against him, offense with severe punishments. Melly and his pals were traveling through the streets of South Florida on the evening of October 26, 2018, when the charges weighed heavily on him as he faced the legal battle of his life. The unimaginable is said to have happened on this tragic drive. Both YNW Sackchaser and YNW Juvie were mortally injured when gunfire broke out. The specifics of the accused crime's motivation remain unclear. However, there were speculations that suggested it might have been motivated by a lucrative brand deal that went awry. The temptation of wealth and celebrity can occasionally steer people in a negative direction. Additionally, it appears that YNW Melly might have given in to these temptations. Firstly, ballistics reports that the bullets found in the bodies of YNW Juvie, 26, and YNW Sackchaser, 21, matched the gun that was registered to YNW Melly. His possible involvement in the crime was seriously called into doubt by this important piece of evidence. Furthermore, forensic examination of the crime site revealed that YNW Melly was further implicated because the shots were fired from inside the car. In addition, witnesses came forward, making claims that implied YNW Melly was responsible for the killings. On the night of the incident, these witnesses said they heard YNW Melly threaten his buddies and saw him carrying a gun. The defense team for YNW Melly retaliated as the case garnered media exposure, asserting that their client was innocent and that the evidence was circumstantial. They said that the prosecution's case was based on conjecture rather than evidence, and that the artist had no reason to hurt his buddies. But the prosecution refuted these allegations with more proof. YNW Melly's legal battle persisted in the months after his arrest. According to the information gathered during the investigation, phone records show that YNW Melly had called his friends just before the shooting, indicating that he was in the vicinity of the crime scene at the time of the incident. This proof made the case against him even stronger. How did Melly transform from a budding musician to a suspected cold-blooded killer? Melly was born on May 1, 1999, as Jamal Maurice Demons, better known by his stage moniker YNW. Having grown up in the tiny South Florida town, the G-Ford community, Melly had a strong passion for music from an early age. He was enthralled with musicians like Michael Jackson and Chris Brown, whose skills encouraged him to seek a career in the field. However, Melly also became fascinated with firearms at a young age. He disclosed in interviews for an official YNW Melly documentary that in 4th grade, he found a pistol beneath his uncle's couch. He brought it with him everywhere from that point on, even to school. His life and music would later recur as a result of this early exposure to weapons. Regretfully, Melly's problematic relationship with the law started when he was a teenager. When he was 16 years old in October 2015, he was charged with major crimes. Melly was charged with 3 counts of aggravated assault and 1 count of firing a handgun in public, according to local Florida newspapers. He allegedly shot 3 more students close to their high school. This event would subsequently serve as the inspiration for one of Melly's most eerie songs, making it a crucial turning point in his life. I'm thinking about murder. In spite of these initial interactions with the law, as Melly's love for music grew, he started posting poor freestyles on SoundCloud using his given name. But by 2016, he had changed it to YNW Melly, and Anthony Williams, a longtime friend, YNW Sackchaser, Christopher Thomas Jr., YNW Cortland and Juvie Bortland, and Henry YNW Youngworld, or Young New Wave, were what Melly called the YNW crew. YNW Melly reached new heights in the industry thanks to his talent and commitment to music. Melly had a major career breakthrough in the months preceding his most recent arrest. The G-Ford musician, then 19 years old, released his mixtape, We All Shine, in February 2019, 1 month prior to his incarceration. Collaborations on this project included some of the biggest names in the business, including Kanye West. Melly's distinctive sound was highlighted, and he was made more widely known by his partnership with Kanye West on the tune Mixed Personalities. The song attracted a lot of attention and strengthened Melly's standing in the music business. The music video for Mixed Personalities received millions of views across several platforms. Enhancing Melly's notoriety, Melly collaborated with Kanye West, but he also worked with other well-known artists, such as Young Thug. Their collaboration produced songs that demonstrated the two artists' compatibility and skill. But it was Melly's terrifying single Murder on My Mind that really thrust him into the public eye, even though these partnerships grew his fan base and cemented his status as a rising star in the field. The song, which was released on March 4, 2017, immediately became popular and went viral. It is eerie. It reached the top of the charts because its reflective tone and catchy lyrics connected with listeners. As the song gained popularity, it finally earned a gold certification and became multi-platinum. Melly's talent to create emotionally powerful and thought-provoking music was demonstrated in Murder on My Mind. Audiences were enthralled by the song's almost diary-like intimacy and vivid storytelling, which cemented Melly's distinctive artistic.